Welcome to the Why Coaching Works podcast. My name is Monte Wyatt, and I'm here to take you on a journey into the world of coaching, exploring its many different facets and uncovering its profound impact on individuals, businesses, and executives alike. We'll be delving into real-life case studies combined with in-depth research from coaching experts to give you a better understanding of why coaching works today. So if you're ready to begin your exploration into the power of coaching, then let's get started. Before we start today's episode, here's a short message from Adding Zero's Executive Development. As CEO, you demand performance and results from your team. If you're committed to developing a cohesive, driven organization that achieves successful outcomes every single month, we need to talk. It's time to see how organizational and executive development from Adding Zeros can help. We focus on strategic planning, executive coaching, team alignment and engagement, organizational culture, and clarity of implementation. Contact me, Monte Wyatt, by booking an appointment at addZerosNow.com. That's ADDZEROSNOW, addZerosNow.com. If you're ready, now is the time. I have 2 coaching spots available for 2024. Lock in your team today. Now let's begin today's episode. Welcome to the Why Coaching Works podcast, where we talk about the impact of coaching, growth of businesses, and personal development. I'm your host, Monte Wyatt. If you are a CEO, an executive, or a business owner, this is the show for you. We call our audience the achiever, and achievers go after the next level in everything that they do. So you're in the right place. I am proud to have a guest on with me today that's a great friend of mine for many years, and he's a business coach from the UK who focuses on scaling businesses and achieving successful exits. He's got global business expertise. He empowers entrepreneurs to break barriers and achieve tangible results, but also give them personal freedom. So I'm excited to have Peter Boolkah with us today. Peter, thank you so much for joining me.
Monty, it's finally nice to reconnect after all this time.
Absolutely.
Thank you for having me.
You bet. I look forward to our conversation. You know, Peter and I bet we've known each other for at least 12 years, probably more than that. And
yeah, probably more than that.
Yeah, and we've seen each other in many aspects of life, when life is good, when life is challenging, but we both have had some great experiences coaching. And I wanted to have you on the show to hear your story of coaching and what you see, what works, and how impactful you have had some results with your clients. But I first want to ask, how did you get in the coaching business anyway?
If I told you by accident, would you believe me? It was kind of weird. I had finished a corporate career, decided to open a restaurant because I needed to basically replace my income that I lost. Opened the restaurant, I think quite quickly found out it wasn't for me. It just wasn't my shtick. Spent a year in the restaurant with a business partner that turned absolutely sour. Began my inexperience in business, not corporate business. Exited that and needed something to do. I was looking for my next corporate gig. And at the time, Action Coach, actually, back then Action International, reached out to me and said, would I be interested in having a look? And I'd already kind of accepted a job in the Middle East and thought, okay, I'm kind of bored at the moment. Before I start my new job, let me see what they're about. Looked at it, wasn't going to do it. And then I met my then-to-be business partner, Ray Moore. He set up a practice, and the vision of what he wanted to achieve kind of intrigued me. I decided not to go back into corporate and invest in that instead. It was never planned, Monty.
So once you got digging into it, what excited you about business coaching, or what made you think it was the right thing for you?
I think I liked the whole vision around helping other people. That intrigued me. But to be honest with you, I saw the potential of earning really great money at the beginning, and that excited me more. I thought, yeah, I could replace my income and more if I become great at this.
And that you have.
Over 18 years, Monty. Thank you for saying that.
Absolutely. You know, there's so many people out there saying they're coaches today. Everybody does coaching in different things. How would you define the word coaching? What do you use to describe coaching?
I think it's using a vast array of tools to help get positive positive shifts in the person you're working with, allowing them to achieve their full potential and desire.
I love that positive shift.
Mm.
Tell me more about the positive shift.
Well, in order to instigate change, there must be change. And in order for there to be change, the person themselves have to change. It's like we talk about coaches having a glass ceiling. Every single entrepreneur out there has that ceiling. And that ceiling artificially holds them back for whatever reason. Now, it's a glass ceiling for a reason, because you can remove that ceiling. With coaching, we help remove that ceiling so that people can, well, I do anyway, in my coaching, help them achieve their full potential, whatever that may be. And it's their full potential to the level they want to take it.
So it has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with them. It's about what they want to achieve.
And that's probably one of the biggest common mistakes coaches make. They see the potential. I've seen so many coaches do this, where they see the potential in other businesses, and then they take the business where they think the business should go. And in effect, they're hijacking somebody else's business, which I don't think is our position. Our job very much is to be the guide on the side. And that's it. It's not our business. It's for us to help the person get to where they want to be.
I love that. We are the guide on the side. And I think that's a powerful statement to really reinforce that our job is to help them see things. Help them see things, whether they're barriers or they're opportunities, but we're the guide, not the driver.
And if you think about so many coaches in the market, Monty, they've had really successful careers, really successful, powerful corporate careers. And I've seen so many people, I mean, like McKinsey's, really high caliber people come into coaching, and it's about them. They feel that they still have to be the most intelligent, smartest individual in the room. And unless they learn it's not about them, there is a high chance that their coaching career is going to come to an abrupt end quite soon after they've started it. It's got to be, I mean, a great coach has no ego. A great coach serves others and is not self-serving. Took me years to learn that, by the way.
And there's a big difference between coaching and consulting in what you just shared as well.
Oh, yes. And a lot of people, especially when you're coming from sort of the big six consultancies practices that happen to dabble in coaching, and you come in the coaching arena, a lot of them like to do. A lot of them like to instruct. A lot of them like to get involved. But the biggest problem is when you're sort of consulting, it's great from one perspective. You can go out there and fix the problem. But as soon as you leave, unless they've got the understanding behind it and they're able to play at that level, the business always reverts back to its native state.
Because the people
I
haven't.
always find it to be a short-term fix.
Absolutely.
It's a bit like going to the gym, sitting down, and the sort of the PT, the gym instructor, says to you, have a seat, what drink would you like, and what weights would you like me to lift for you today?
Uh-huh.
Well, it just doesn't work, does it?
No, I think that's fantastic. You know, coaching versus consulting, and even clients get confused with that. They think coaches are there to give their opinions and give them corrections and direction. Well, we are to give a little correction and direction, but we're teaching them to think differently.
Absolutely. We're helping them skill up. Because if they can skill up and they can learn the art of sort of improvement, they can then do the same thing with their teams. And that's the nice thing, is about getting them skilling up, getting them more competent so that they can get their teams competent.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Tell us an example of how you've worked with a team and helped them skill up. What have you done to help them skill up?
I think at the end of the day, Have you ever heard of the expression monkey see, monkey do?
Yes.
Well, if a CEO hits their glass ceiling and is trying to run a $30 million pound business with a $5 million sort of dollar mindset, the business is always going to run into trouble. I'm sure you've seen it so many times where the business has outgrown the owner, the people cannot come along, and that business is operating in a state of constant trauma.
Yes.
Then the entrepreneur thinks, guess what? Let me go and spend money, throw money at this, and hire better people. So they hire great people, but they can't lead great people because their leadership isn't at the level needed for those great people to respect that entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. So then there's more conflict. And I've seen it very often with startups where they'll get sort of Series 1 funding, Series 2 funding, and they just burn through the funding because they're getting a team of A players. So they're getting a team of all stars without the ability to create an all-star team. Then they run out of money, and that's the end of the enterprise.
So what I'm hearing you say is the CEO or business owner is the ceiling of the business.
Yeah. And you can't bring, I mean, very rarely can you bring in better people and lead them if your leadership hasn't grown to that level.
That is a fantastic perspective. You can hire the best people, but if you're not leading them to the best, they still have that ceiling. So how do you help a CEO recognize that?
By looking at the brutal facts. Jim Collins refers to it. You've got to confront the brutal facts. I love confronting the brutal facts. Very often you'll just look, there is no lying about it. If a fish stinks, it stinks from the head down. Same with the organization. What we have going on in the organization is purely a reflection of the business owner. So what do we need to learn as a business owner to change the picture that we are seeing? So we look at what goes on in the organization, what's being reflected back to us, why we are having sometimes the challenges we are, because most businesses that are doing really well, they don't reach out for help because they are happy where they are. People tend to come to us for help when really they're hitting their head against that brick wall, and then they can't solve the problem. I wish it was the other way around, but 99% of the time it just isn't. We deal with pain points. So we've got to look at why these pain points have happened in the first place and correct that behavior. If we don't deal with the cause and only deal with the effect, the cause will continuously come back.
You know, I love that you shared that. And I want to reinforce to our listener, the achiever, that you've got to look at yourself first. We've got to look at ourselves. We are the ceiling of the business, and what we are projecting to the team is where the business is going to be. And so we've got to raise our skills. We've got to raise our thinking, raise our abilities so our team can get raised. So I love that.
And there's one other thing as well to add to that, is whenever I engage with a CEO, I'm operating in their blind spot. You know what it's like. You're in your organization, you'll see an organization through your filters. And very often, if you're busy in an organization, it's fair to say you don't see the wood from the trees.
Yep.
And when you have someone from the outside looking in, they'll see it from that third-party perspective. So they offer a very different viewpoint, which allows you to look at it through no blame, no judgment, purely fact.
Yep. I love that. I love that. So when you coach a business, you're really coaching the person. So you can help grow a business, but if the person isn't growing just like the business is, it still will get stalled, correct?
Yeah, totally. I'm not one of those. Before I ever do any teamwork with a business, I need to work with the CEO first. Because I could go into that, we could have the most amazing team day ever. Everyone is pumped. But if the CEO's got some really bad traits and behaviors, the benefit of that workshop will basically disappear very quickly. And then you're no further forward.
Yep.
So I say work with the CEO first. Let's get the competency level up and then do the workshops. Because then when you bring the wider team in, and I don't know whether you've seen this, Monty, but I've very often seen it where there's some difficult people in the room that really shouldn't be in the business. They were bad hires. The CEO is not necessarily equipped to deal with that person. They're disruptive. You've got silos. There's a great book on that, Silos, Politics, and Turf Wars. I'm sure you've read it.
Yep.
One of Lenciani's great books. You've got that happening. And sometimes we just got to deal with the true problems. And often that is other members of the team. And unless the CEO is equipped and mentally ready to deal with that, you can't move forward.
I love that. I love that. You got to start with the head. Got to start with the head.
Always.
You know, I want to hear about how have you grown because of being coached yourself? What?
Oh, massively. Massively. I mean, when I came out of corporate, I did have this really stink-ass attitude that I knew everything. I mean, when I think back, I wouldn't want anyone to have been coached by me. My attitude sucked. Didn't see it at the time, but my attitude sucked. I mean, talk about ego. It was just horrible. But it's nice that when you get a coach on board and they call you out and you're on bullshit. I mean, that was, for me, was a total surprise and really uncomfortable. And through that process, I had to learn some really hard truths about myself, about how I was coming across, not deliberately, but sort of unconsciously, and the changes I needed to make. And I typically work with sort of 4 to 5 coaches in different areas all the time.
Yep.
And I view them as being my catalyst to helping me grow.
Absolutely. How long did it take you after you started your business before you found your first coach?
Until I found my coach and was willing to be coached. There's a difference. You can find a coach and still not be willing to be coached, but you've ticked the found a coach box. I have to say, it probably took me 2 years to find and be willing to be coached, and actually accepting that I needed to change.
Yep. That's interesting. You say 2 years, because that's the number that I have too. Is I knew it almost to the day when I hired that coach and I was ready to go. It was 2 years into business, and I wondered, how did I survive the last 2 years?
Oh, do you know what? And we do that. We survive by working really hard and making a ton of stupid mistakes. But that's part and parcel of life, I'm afraid.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's even for our clients. You know, they've learned from mistakes, but it's how do you see the mistakes? And we've got to help people see those mistakes.
Yeah, look, it's okay to make mistakes. But there's a saying that I love: once bitten, twice stupid. Make mistakes all day long, but fail forward fast.
Yes.
That's got to be the key. But don't fail forward twice fast, because that's the quickest way to sort of lose money.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I'd love to hear from you a suggestion or a tip for our achiever, the audience, on if they're considering to hiring a coach. What tip would you give them if they're considering hiring a coach?
Make sure it's a chemistry match. What do I mean by that? The coach-coachee relationship is probably the most intimate relationship you will have outside your relationship with your significant other. You think about it, you start a business, that becomes the pride and joy. You get to see, your coach will be able to, will see basically all the skeletons in your closet. You need to be vulnerable enough to allow them to see everything, because only with that visibility can they help you. And there'll be things you'll discuss with your coach you will never discuss with your partner. You can't discuss with your employees. You can't discuss with anybody else, not your friends down the pub. You just can't have these conversations. And that's what I mean by the fact that it becomes intimate, because they become that person in your corner, that really unreasonable but compassionate friend. I'm sure we've seen it on a flip chart somewhere.
Absolutely. I love it. It's being vulnerable. And that's a great way of looking at it. If you're not willing to be vulnerable, then it's going to be a waste of time, waste of money.
Yeah. And you can't allow ego, and it is ego, to get in the way of your progress. The world around us is constantly changing. Therefore, it will be foolhardy to say we can stop learning. If anything, we need to learn more today than we've ever have done, because the rate of growth change within a whole global economy is the fastest it's ever been.
Yeah.
What we do today may not work next year. So we have to learn again so we can learn to change. We can't change if we haven't learned how to change or what we're going to change into.
Most people don't like to change, do they? They fear change.
And that's absolutely fine. Don't change. And that's why there are so many bankruptcies out there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Blockbuster fear change. They are no more. How many of the big companies out there that weren't bad companies that didn't change fast enough are no longer with us?
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. Peter, I really appreciate your insights. This has been a great episode of Why Coaching Works, because and that's the last question that I'm going to ask you is, why do you think coaching works?
Why does coaching work? Okay. Why does coaching work in basketball, baseball, soccer? It's because you've got all these people looking in from the outside and helping players, teams, CEOs make the small, big changes. I call them the little big things. People are too often focused on big changes. What's going to be the Moby Dick? What's going to be this one big thing that I need to change? If you take the British Olympic cycling team, 20 years ago, they were nothing. But when their coach came in, James Brailsford, he did all the little changes. It was the 0.1% here, the 0.1% there. It was all the 0.1%, the micro changes along the way that amalgamated to the big change. A coach helps you make the micro changes that very often you don't notice because they're so small. But when you take the law of compound, over time has the greatest effect. And that's why coaching works.
I love it. I love it. Peter, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been a great interview, great conversation. And for our audience, the achiever, that's my challenge for you today, is to think about what are the little big changes that need to be made. So I really appreciate that insight. So thank you for watching our episode. We'll look forward to seeing you on our next show.
Monty, thank you so much for having me. And audience, remember, subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. If you like it, please press the like button because it will help Monty with the algorithms. And if you know anyone that will benefit from today's episode, please share it with others. Thank you so much, Monty.
Oh, thank you, Peter. Thank you for listening to the Why Coaching Works podcast. I hope this episode has helped you see the individual, business, and executive impact, growth, and development that coaching provides. Please take a second to give us a thumbs up and subscribe. Each review helps me impact more people just like you and make a difference in this world. See you on the next episode of Why Coaching Works.